Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're zeroing in on a totally pivotal element of English grammar for B1 professionals, and that is mastering verb patterns. Now look, I know grammar might sound a little dry at first, but I am absolutely here to tell you that this isn't just about passing some test. We're going to see how one tiny, seemingly insignificant grammar choice, whether you use a word ending in ing or a word starting with to, can literally change your entire career trajectory. Seriously, it can be the difference between sounding like a dedicated, focused leader or someone who's, barely even paying attention at work.
Okay, let's just dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll start with the HR meeting scenario, then look at two paths, gerund or infinitive. After that, we'll enter the danger zone with chameleon verbs, fix things up in the error clinic, and finally wrap up with the context dilemma test.
All right, Section 1, the HR meeting scenario.
So imagine you're an employee, right? And you're sitting in this really high-stakes performance review with your HR manager. I want to pose this pretty thought-provoking question to you. What actually happens when your grammar accidentally changes your career goals? Think about it. Using a gerund, a verb ending in ing, instead of an infinitive, which is to plus the base verb, well, it can communicate the exact opposite of what you actually mean. You might sit there thinking you're promising to work harder, but your grammar is actually confessing to your boss that you're slacking off.
We're going to use this highly relatable HR scenario throughout the entire explainer today. By grounding our lesson in this specific setting, discussing goals, habits, and new office routines, we can actually take these abstract grammar concepts, like rigid verb patterns, and pull them right down into concrete, real-world application. You're going to see exactly why getting this right is absolutely crucial for your professional image.
Moving right along to Section 2, two paths, gerund or infinitive. Now here's what's really interesting. When you place two verbs right next to each other in English, that first verb, it acts kind of like a boss. It dictates exactly what uniform the second verb has to wear. And look, there's no magic logical trick here. You simply just have to memorize these lists. Verbs like enjoy, avoid, and suggest absolutely demand that the following verb takes that ing gerund form. Meanwhile, verbs on the other side, like decide, plan, and offer, they require the infinitive. That's to plus the base verb. Let's actually see these two paths in action during that HR meeting we talked about. If you use avoid, which is a gerund-demanding verb, you get I avoid making mistakes. Perfect. But if you use plan, you've got to use the infinitive. I plan to lead the project. Both of these sentences, they sound perfectly natural, totally professional, and structurally flawless.
Okay, Section 3, the danger zone, verbs that change meaning. So, while those previous verbs took one strict path, we are now entering the danger zone. These are what we call chameleon verbs. They allow you to use both patterns, but, and this is a massive but, they completely flip their meaning depending on your choice. The verb stop is our first chameleon here. Stop doing, using the gerund, means successfully breaking a bad habit entirely. However, stop to do, using the infinitive, means you're currently doing something, you interrupt that action, and you pause in order to go do something else.
Let's look at the classic example. If you sit down in your HR meeting and proudly declare, I stopped to smoke, oh boy, you are basically telling HR that you interrupted your productive work specifically to go outside and have a cigarette. You're stating a purpose. But if you say, I stopped smoking, you're telling them you quit the habit altogether. One little preposition changes you from this super health-conscious employee into someone taking unscheduled smoke breaks. Crazy, right?
Let's check out another major chameleon verb, remember. When remember is followed by a gerund, like remember doing, you're basically looking backward. You are recalling a past event that has already happened, kind of like looking at an old photo. But remember with an infinitive, remember to do, well, that is looking forward. It's all about not forgetting to complete unnecessary future task.
You really want to keep these four tricky chameleon verbs in your back pocket. Stop, remember, forget, and try. Swapping an ing for a to with any of these will drastically alter the message you're sending your manager. For instance, trying to do something means making a real, concentrated effort to achieve a difficult goal, while trying doing something means you're just casually experimenting with a new method to see if it works. Precision is absolutely power here. All right, let's transition into Section 4, the error clinic, and specifically the preposition trap.
Okay, so here is a classic, almost daily error we see from a lot of European professionals. I am interested in learn.
This happens mostly because of direct translation from a native language, where you might, naturally just drop a base infinitive right after a preposition. But in English, this structure will instantly flag you as someone struggling with fluency.
So, the crucial takeaway here, and you should definitely write this down, is this unbreakable golden rule of English grammar. Preposition plus gerund. If you have a preposition, words like in, at, of, for, about, and you want to put a verb right after it, that next verb simply must be a gerund. It has to end in ing, literally no exceptions. Let's run through the correct, highly professional forms for your HR meeting. We just replaced that clunky, incorrect phrase with the perfectly natural, interested in learning. You aren't good at solve, you are good at solving. You aren't tired of wait, you're tired of waiting. If you just memorize these combinations, your spoken English will instantly sound like significantly more advanced and polished.
And finally, Section 5, the Context Dilemma Test.
It is time for our interactive closing section. Now, I want you to play the role of the HR manager. You have to decipher what your employee is actually saying based entirely on their grammar. Okay, Dilemma 1. The employee wants to prove they completed their assigned duty for the week. Which option proves this? Is it A, I remember sending the report, or B, I remembered to send the report? Think back to those chameleon verbs we just talked about.
And the answer is B. I remembered to send the report means they recalled their future obligation and they successfully completed the task on time. Option A, I remembered sending it, just means they have a memory in their brain of the action. It doesn't actually highlight their responsibility, it just highlights their memory. And as an HR manager, that is a vital distinction when you're evaluating performance.
Okay, scenario 2. The employee is trying to show they've grown and fixed a really toxic office habit. Picking the wrong verb pattern here could lead to a truly disastrous misunderstanding with the boss. So, should they say A, I stopped complaining, or B, I stopped to complain?
You guessed it. The answer is A. I stopped complaining correctly uses the gerund to show that the negative habit has been quit entirely. If they had chosen option B, I stopped to complain, they would literally be confessing to HR that they paused their productive work just so they could go whine and complain to a coworker. Definitely not the impression you want to make during a performance review, right? So, I want to conclude today with this somewhat provocative thought. Are your verb patterns secretly holding back your true professional potential? As we've seen today, just a simple ing or to can drastically shift how your competence is perceived by others. I highly encourage you to review these Module 10 rules, practice that golden rule of prepositions, and master those chameleon verbs so that your English grammar always perfectly matches your professional ambition. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.